So episode 2 of Sharp Objects, called Dirt, starts with a masterful opening scene with Camille, played by Amy Adams, laying down with her iPod on again, and she's getting these crazy flashes. What was really effective about this scene was now they were throwing in her quick flashes, things that happened the last episode. So now we're gonna get memories of things we've already seen and tidbits of things from further in the past. So we see a flash of her seeing those birds from the last episode. Then we see her at a mysterious gate with somebody in it. Then an old woman with a mark on her neck. And then the first time we see Sydney Sweeney's character with a bloody mouth on the train. But then a crazy reveal we got here, and it was a big hint to what was going to happen this episode. You see Natalie Keene got her teeth pulled out in Camille's flashes. And what's crazy about all this is she's listening to music and getting off to these flashes and little flashes of S&M in there again. So you're wondering what's even like turning her on, or is it that she's just using this getting off to suppress these feelings and thoughts she's getting? And it was so terrifying and cool how then Sydney Sweeney appears in her room with the bloody face, and she's wearing the black dress now, I think hinting at that this girl clearly died. So some exciting stuff to start this episode off. Who is this mysterious girl that Sydney Sweeney's playing? I'm sure we're going to find out a lot about her soon. So then we cut to a scene with Adora, the crazy mother, looking at herself in the mirror. And of course when she leaves her room, the maid has to come in and clean the spaces in between, right where she was standing. Some clear super OCD from the mom. And it was such a great cut of the maid rubbing the floor to Emma downstairs rubbing the floor of the dollhouse. And this is a show where clothing is so important. I mean, you can learn right from seeing the mom all in black that she's gonna go to this funeral, and that you see Emma's just in pink, so clearly she's not letting her go. You got that hint right there. So then we cut to Detective Willis, who looks at the memorials of both Anne Nash and right down the road, Natalie Keene. He looks down at the flowers, and then we cut to him in a barbershop, and he tells the barber, who puts the flowers out at these memorials? Is it a sign of a guilty conscience? And the barber claims it's people just being nice, and it all alludes to superstitions here, where he explains that the whole town thinks that if they do good, they leave these flowers, they remove the rocks from Anne Nash's site of death, it will prevent future evil and will prevent something happening to their kids. And then Detective Willis has a great line, well, I guess they left a rock or two, referring to how they cleared out all this stuff from Anne Nash's area for superstitious reasons, and Natalie Keene still was murdered. And a really cool, crazy flash of Anne Nash with the clothesline around her neck in the creek. Very spooky, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm loving these flashes. I think it adds so much intensity to this show, because this show is a slow burn for sure. So it's much needed. So then Camille comes into the family kitchen, the whole family's there, and right away the mom is seeing that the dress doesn't perfectly fit Camille. And that's obviously a big hint that was going to happen later on where the dress rips and how that would set off the mom. The mom catches everything. She knows everything. She's so paranoid and so OCD, but sometimes she's actually right, which is a scary part. Like, she could see right away that dress didn't fit, it eventually ripped. And then, right when Camille grabs the knife to cut the fruit at the table, the mom immediately takes the knife in her hands like, don't worry, I can handle that, and gives it to the maid. And you can see Amy Adams' face completely drops. You know the mother knows about her cutting from the past and is also on top alert of her around sharp objects, no pun intended of the title. But you would say, oh, maybe the mom's over paranoid even about that. But Camille still is cutting herself, and she cuts herself later on with just needles. So as crazy as the mom is, she does have a good instinct for things that go wrong. And then the mom's like, I loved those girls. And then Aim is like, how did you know them again? And she's like, well, I'm very involved in the community. I laughed so hard at this. Clearly, the mom is full of it most of the time. She barely knew these girls. But clearly the only reason she's going is it connects to her loss of her kid. And the mom's just brutal here. We learn she's not letting Emma go to the funeral. She doesn't want her out at all. Insanely paranoid, like the whole town is. And she's like, you can just stay home and have ice cream. And they make the point of she was friends with these girls, so she's the one who probably should be going the most. But the mom doesn't care about that. And then she says to Camille, maybe you should stay too, given your state of mind. And Camille's like, it's my job. So it's an insanely complicated relationship between the mom and daughter. She is looking out for her daughter. She definitely loves her daughter deep down, but she's overbearing. And finally, the quiet stepdad sticks up for Camille and is like, I think she knows how to behave. And the mom alludes to the death of their child was enough. I can't believe there's 2 more in this town. So she's clearly got some serious PTSD from that death. Still thinking about that constantly. There really is such great character development going on. It's such a simple scene at this breakfast table they're eating at in the kitchen. The clothing choice they have them all wear. The lines they say. Everything is so detailed in this show and so important. So the detective says to the sheriff outside the funeral, doesn't get why the killer changed his MO, where his first killing of Anne Nash, he has her at a creek, and then the second killing, he has Natalie in the middle of town for everyone to see. And the sheriff's like, some killers like to get caught. And the detective's like, maybe this killer want to scare the whole town, and it's working, and not have their children go out. Like he's making a statement. But the sheriff, we're learning more about him. He's super not receptive to any of this. The detective's constantly thinking about it and doing his job where the sheriff really isn't. The detective makes a great point that this is probably a personal killing, and that if that is the case and this guy wants attention, he's going to want to be around it too and be at this funeral, so keep an eye out. The sheriff clearly knows stuff because he's not even answering any of this and doesn't want to hear about it. So you're starting to see where each of these characters' hearts lie and their intentions, and it's adding more mystery because we want to know now, why is the sheriff not acting like the detective and doing his job to the full extent? So we see it's a huge turnout for this funeral. Like they reference in one point in this episode, it's the hot ticket in town. And I almost felt like Elizabeth Perkins stole this scene here, the character of Jackie, because she plays a town gossip perfectly. She's talking really loud at a very serious service and is very nonchalant about everything. It's almost like there's a weird excitement she has there, which I think a lot of people are guilty of at like big tragic events. But Jackie's character fills us in that they can't have the body at the funeral because of the investigation. And then we learn that the parents of Natalie are divorced. But the coolest part about this scene was the camera shots of Camille's notepad and the notes she's taking on the job here. So again, we get to really see how good Camille is at her job. She notices Bob Nash is wasted at the funeral, writes that down. She's getting a vibe that John Keene, the brother, is a loser of sorts, and he's dating a Jackie O type, referring to Jackie Kennedy Onassis, the wife of JFK. But of course, her mother's sitting next to her and she keeps nudging her and doesn't want her doing her job or doing any of this, and just taking in and mourning. And this shows that the mom is a character that almost loves pain and loves sorrow and is hooked to it. You could see how she's still behaving from the loss of her first kid, where Camille moves on in different ways, but she still does her job and still acts like a functional person in society and is nice to people. So you can see the contrast right in that scene, how she's trying to get this killer doing her job, but the mom doesn't care about that. She's more just, let's just all suffer and take it all in. You can see both sides, but maybe they're both extremes in a certain way. And then we see the mom of Natalie has a big speech. She's speaking of, she wants revenge to this killer for what happened to her daughter. She's very angry. Great acting by this actress. I was very impressed by it. It's nice to see small roles of characters kill it when their moment comes. I like that. I always root for the underdog actress or actress, so I was very impressed by this. But we see the mom at the funeral grabs that eyelash again, flashes to her at the funeral of her daughter's death, grabbing her eyelash. Someone had commented in my other video that this is actually a condition that shows a disorder that's basically like an OCD type disorder. So the important thing we see in this flash of the funeral in the past was Camille running to her mom to comfort her. And her mom just gets up immediately, wants her off of her. This to me is a sign that the mom, at least partly, blames Camille for the loss of the younger sister. And the dress rips at the funeral. Great hint of this at the beginning in the kitchen scene where she's like, that dress doesn't fit. So top-notch writing there. Again, every little line counts here. So Camille leaves the funeral in the middle of service, which can come off really bad to people, but she does it anyway. She's doing it for her job. And she looks outside. And I feel like it kind of comforted her in a way, seeing the detective also there to work, and he's getting soil from under the car of Bob Nash. So what I really love is these phone call scenes between her and her editor, Frank. Frank's almost like this father figure for her, and he really deeply cares about her. He's basically like, is this too much for you? And she's like, no, trust me, I'm fine. And he's like, great, let's write this story. So it's really funny how he's always like kind of tiptoeing her into it, but the minute she says she's okay, he goes full in, and he's like, don't solve a mystery here, tell a story. So he's keeping her in that reporter realm and not as much in that investigator realm. And she says to him how she could tell that the brother of Natalie, not a wind gap type, and it makes him suspicious. So it's also a pro of her being from this hometown covering this. And he's like, this could be your big break. She's like, don't say that. You tell she always hates the pressure and making things bigger than they are. It adds to her anxiety and stress. But he believes in her fully, and what's great is we learn his wife is very skeptical of Camille. And what we can tell from this is Camille's probably burned Frank before, and he's trusted her, and she keeps messing up because she's not a trustworthy reporter because of her addiction issues. And the wife's like, you can't fix her. And he deep down believes he can, and that there's still hope for her, and he sees a bright future with her. So again, even the side characters are building really well. So we see Camille drives up to the Keene house, and she pulls up on the side of the road, and she starts to cut herself with this threading needle that she was using to fix the dress. Clearly she wants to fix that dress right away as well, because she knows her mom will freak out even at the littlest thing like that. But the other side of her getting that needle was also to cut. But now we're seeing these cuts are letters and there's designs to them. And she cuts here, MCA. Could M be Marion for her little sister? C be herself, Camille? And A be Amma or her mom, Adora? What do you guys think? So we see drunk Bob Nash thrown out by Mr. Keene. They clearly don't like each other. Bob Nash is making himself probably the heaviest suspect, but clearly, again, how show works, that's just too obvious. He's got to be a red herring here. So, like, again, the visual stuff, we see one of the license plates in the driveway says punish, and then on her car, she scribed in scared. So she also writes her emotions through cutting on herself or through other things that she's feeling at a given moment, which we'll see later in the episode. What do you guys think the punishment in the driveway, if you have any theories on that? So really effective audio work here is the scene where Camille's walking to the Keene house and you're hearing all the whispering lightly going on around her in the party. Clearly you can hear someone say, they don't call her Camille for nothing. And it's all in a tone of not liking her. She is not Miss Popular anymore. The mom stares at her, not happy to see her there. And then we see the Jackie O type girlfriend talking about Natalie Keene's brother and mother and saying, why are they sitting alone? No wonder that they're not part of the town. And she says an important line where she says, Natalie Keene's mom, the way she described Natalie is not the girl that she really was. So does that mean she isn't a tomboy like she described? It's interesting, and seeing how Jackie O is acting, it makes her suspicious and very odd. So clearly, Camille's looking in the right places and on to the right people. So then also in this funeral home, a group of former cheerleaders notices Camille, and they're like, look at you, you're a big shot now in St. Louis. These are clearly the type of people in your hometown you don't want to ever see at a reunion. So Camille takes advantage of the situation and asks about the brother of Natalie. And they're like, he's crying like a baby and way too much. And then they're like, maybe he's gay. And then that jumps to one of them thinking he probably did it because he's an odd duck. These are just grown-up bullies here. They probably bullies in high school and never stopped. How many people do we all know like this? So they were casted perfectly here. So then again, we see Jackie calling over Camille. And what's great about Jackie's character is she's so sweet to Camille. And we learn later in the episode that Camille says Jackie's the only person who's genuinely been nice to her whole life. But Jackie also lies a lot. She says she lies like a rug. So she's not the most trustworthy source of information we're getting here. But she does say that her mom truly does love her, even though Camille doesn't believe it. And that she wished Camille knew the mom before she had Marion, which is very interesting. And that she was nice and sweet like Camille was. And Camille doesn't believe it. She's like, you're still lying, Jackie. I love that airhead feel to Jackie's character. Her type of character adds more mystery show like this. She's really there to stir the pot. It's a really important character here because she's the lens we're going to be getting a lot of information from, and you don't know if you can trust it or not. So Camille sneaks into Natalie's bedroom. We see the mom clearly designed the bedroom because she made it all pink and very girly, but you could tell that Natalie was a tomboy. She's got the soccer stuff up, snowboards, dinosaurs, and then she's into spiders, and she has a tarantula. So Camille saves the tarantula's life, lets him outside, doesn't want to starve in that room, and she runs into Natalie's father. So we learned that Natalie went missing in Overley Park in bright daylight, and that the dad was in Philly at the time. The dad also believes that Bob Nash is a strange character, and he also confirms Ann and Natalie eventually had a falling out. And he doesn't believe the son did any harm because he said the son loved Natalie and wouldn't ever do a thing to her. So we get a lot of information from his point of view. And Natalie's smart. She's trying to get as many sides of the story as possible from anywhere she can. So we see the two main characters here that are in Camille's way of doing her job the most are clearly the mom. She doesn't want her in Natalie's room. She catches her in there. She's like, I can't believe you just went into a room of a dead girl, didn't respect the family or her life, and put your job first. And she's like, go report somewhere else. And then the other person we see throughout these shots at Natalie Keene's house is the sheriff, who's constantly just staring down Camille. So he's got his eye on her, and it's really weird how much paranoia he has around her. So it's almost like the detective and Camille are on this side of trying to figure this out, and the big detractors are the sheriff and the mother. So Detective Wills is at the morgue with Natalie Keene's body, and we learn that her teeth were removed by pliers. The doctor's like, it takes probably a strong male who pulled these teeth out, and there had to be a lot of adrenaline involved, which alludes to the scene where Detective Willis goes and gets a pig head and has to use all that strength just to pull one tooth out. So it was kind of cool to see him actually try it, because a lot of shows, they cheat scenes like that, but I like to see it. It helps actually prove it's true. So Camille goes to Overley Park, where Natalie's father said she went missing, and she sees two little boys are out with no parents. They don't care. They're nonchalant. But this little boy says he first heard what happened from another little boy, James Capisi. And he says that James said the woman in white took her. Now, the woman in white folklore is basically a doppelganger story about two women who actually look like each other and are taken advantage of by somebody else and basically used against each other, not on their will. Now, a character in that story is named Marianne, like the younger sister. I'm wondering if the woman in white's going to be a doppelganger of Camille, and Camille takes the role of the main girl, Laura, in the story of the woman in white. But that could be a total reach here. But any woman in white in any story represents a person of total purity. So we'll see what happens with this. Any theories you got, let me know. And then we get a shot. It's a beautiful shot. It opens with a spider web, and at the end of the shot, we see a little spider, which to me, spiritually, it can represent clearly Natalie, because she loves spiders and took care of them, and that she's there, or that Camille's onto the right path here. But we also see she sees a quick vision of the woman in white in the woods. So how is Camille getting these visions? Did she see a woman in white before this? Does she know a woman in white from her past? What is she blocking out of her memory? What is she still not telling anybody? Or is she really just hallucinating? So Camille goes to James Capici's house. This kid basically is holding a gun. He's super poor, dirt poor. And the mom doesn't even carry as a gun. She's holding an IV attached to her. Super sick. And Camille wants to know what happened from the mom. The mom's like, I'll talk for 50. And she's like, I can't offer you money to get an answer, but we'll see how long that lasts. We know Camille likes to break the rules. We get a cool flash of Camille getting home and then walking up the steps and imagining her as a kid running after her little sister up the steps. And the sister goes and hugs the mom really tight, but you can sense there's some jealousy there. And the mom brings the sister into the sister's bedroom. So that's also an interesting thing to add to this relationship of Camille and her little sister at the time, that there was some jealousy or bad blood there. So while she's driving, we get another important flash of this mystery girl played by Sydney Sweeney who puts headphones on. I think we can take from that Camille was probably friends with this girl when she was a kid, and maybe because they both wore headphones together all the time or something like that. That's why Camille's always wearing iPod headphones. Again, I could be reaching here, but I think just the feel of that shot showed they were friends when they were kids, because it was a peaceful shot of her. It wasn't her with any blood or anything like that. So then we see kind of a cliche scene where Camille confronts the sheriff. She's basically saying, you knew about this eyewitness, James Capici, and about this mom. Why didn't you take it more seriously? And he's like, he's only 8 years old. His mom's a meth addict. She's sick, has cancer. This is a kid who's gone through so much, he's just probably delusional. And Camille's like, maybe the woman in white story isn't folklore of this town anymore. Maybe someone's trying to make it real. And the sheriff's like, it's no woman in white. Man did this. So then you kind of don't know how to feel, because you'd see both sides of that argument, where maybe this kid is from such a traumatic situation, clearly, that he just makes stuff up to ease his own pain as a child. And then maybe the sheriff's right too, that a man did this because we saw about the pliers and the teeth pulling and how hard it is. But Camille's also right in the sense of what the sheriff should be doing, and how this could clearly still be a woman and a woman in white. So then we get a scene of Camille at the bar. She runs into the detective again. There's clearly sexual tension between these two characters. You can tell the way they look at each other, especially Camille looking at him and how he always alludes to wanting to just have a beer with her and not talk about work. And he's been so hard to break down until this point, but he says, I'll talk off record. And the detective confirms her, both dads are suspects. It was probably a man who did it, because he learned how hard it was to even just to pull from the pig's mouth. And she's like, you're sick. And then he cheers her and he's like, bless your heart. A great throwback to the beginning of the scene where she said that Jackie always said bless your heart, referring basically that means you're calling someone an A-word. It's a nice touch on the writing there. But you see the flirting going on between them, and you learn from the creeps at the bar that they say to Camille, ain't no rest for the wicked, huh? So she's got a really, really bad reputation if they're all calling her wicked. And the detective says that she was once the princess of this town and to bow down. So what did Camille do, or people think she did, that caused all this hate, coming from being a princess to now wicked? Could have she been framed for something, for someone that looks like her? Because that's what the Woman in White story is kind of about. Who knows? So we get another scene of Camille on the phone with her editor. She's in her room, talks about the tarantula to the editor, fills him in on everything. And he's like, a lot of this works for a beautiful story here. But it almost seems like Camille is more getting invested in this as a pure investigator instead of looking for a story, because he suggests a headline that's juicy. She doesn't even seem like she's into it, and it's almost inappropriate to her. But the key line here is the editor asking her, did the folks of Natalie Keene give you permission to go in her room? And she pauses for a second and she lies and she says, yeah, the mom gave me a tour. And what's brilliant about this is then you realize, oh my god, that lie she has, and if she thinks she's gonna put down the story, can really screw her and the editor over. So they show her rough draft she's writing and the certain text she has about her in Natalie's room, knows it's the wrong thing to do, knows she lies about it to the editor, they can get in trouble for it. While she's thinking about deleting it or not, she starts carving in her jeans with the needle, liar. So there's this insane self-defeating behavior she has and self-torture she is doing to herself. This scene was so effective and one of the, to me, most brilliant produced scenes yet. To go from that phone call to what they're talking about, her lying, and then seeing how she treats herself thinking about what she just did. You can't get better character building than that. So she hears Amma scream downstairs, runs down. The mom and dad negate the situation, saying she's just upset about losing a friend. Very mysterious. What really happened that made her start crying? That was clearly a lie by the mother. And she decides to ignore the situation that's currently happening to mom and defers it to Camille being drunk at the funeral. Camille's like, really? Mama's crying right now and you're gonna do this? It's a great acted scene by Patricia Clarkson and Amy Adams here. They both killed it. Amy Adams, the way she reacts and finally snaps at her mom. And then Amma's like, to the mother, like, hey, Camille can be good. She can be good. So you see how, again, the different strategy of Amma and Camille, how they handle the mom. Amma still puts on the fake act and tries to be nice to the mom, where Camille sort of does that, but she eventually breaks and fights back. So then we go upstairs. This fight makes her not think clearly, and she goes upstairs, says F it, and leaves the text in her rough draft. Super risky, but she's going for it. Puts her headphones on, lays down. I like how we ended the episode again with that kind of shot. She's getting all her flashes again. Flashes of blood again. This janitor, the mystery girl. And she starts cutting with the needle into her belly. This was another really good episode. This one was super, super slow burn. I appreciate solid character building here, but I hope they pick up the pace a little quicker because we know this is only going to be a mini series. There's only 7 episodes here. So I hope this week can just go a little more. They're building mystery here really well. Only thing that frustrated me a little bit about this episode is a little redundant with certain things. I think they overshow some stuff where they can cut some of it out. Like, okay, we get the sheriff is not receptive to things. We get the mom is crazy. You can kind of tighten up a little more, I feel like. But I appreciate the focus in the show, all the awesome visual symbolism they have here, things they're hinting at. It's a work of art. The acting's incredible. The writing's top notch. I can't wait to see what happens. I'm going to give this episode an 8.7. Still really, really good. And I have high hopes and expectations for how this is all going to unravel. Please let me know what you thought of the episode down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. I respond to as many comments as I can. I read every single one. Let's get the discussion going on this show. Give me any theories you got as well. I'd love to hear them. And please leave spoilers from the book away from here. I have not read the book. That's for discussion somewhere else. So any theories you have, let's just base it off of people who haven't read the book and what you think's going to happen in the show. And please subscribe. I review a bunch of TV shows. I reviewed all of Handmaid's Tale. I reviewed The Sinner, Better Call Saul, Castle Rock. I review movies, do celebrity interviews. So you don't want to miss any of that. And my review of each episode of Sharp Objects drops right after it airs on HBO. And please follow me at Steve Varley1 on Twitter and Instagram for more. And I'll see you next time.